To prepare for this review, I have read 100% of every comment ever made about the Nakamichi Dragon, twice, and felt all the feels all at once.
Thanks. That is the ugliest effing skirt I've ever seen.
Now that everyone's been validated, dragon lovers, dragon haters, base lovers, Andrew Robinson fans, trolls, people just kicked out of dragon Facebook groups, innocent bystanders, and dads ignoring their family, let's do this. Yes, I will be reviewing the original Dragon system, along with 2 new 12-inch subs. I will discuss the full system sound, but will put a particular emphasis on the new 12s as it is the mysterious new thing. Spoiler alert, the system I'm reviewing is expensive. The new 12-inch subwoofer is right now $1,200, but is slated to go up to $1,500 the day after Halloween. Yes, spooky. The cheapest you'll get my setup is a cool $5,700 if you buy early. If you wait too much longer, you may be paying up to $7,000. You can take a look at the Dragon site to view the price of the other bundles. Are there near endless opportunities to set up some very enticing traditional home theater systems that sound as good or better for the same price or less? Does the sun rise in the east? Does a coin have 2 sides? Is an upside down frown actually a smile? I understand that for our more esteemed viewers, which I assume are equal parts gentleman, scholar, athlete, rock star, and object of feminine desire, it's difficult to imagine paying so much for a soundbar system, especially a polarizing, controversial one like the Dragon. But some people just don't want that life for a variety of reasons, but are willing to spend a pretty penny on a plug-and-play system if they deem it technically badass. For this group and as owner of the original Dragon, I'll do my best to transfer my experience in a manner that helps you determine if the 12s are for you. Supported base configurations. For shorthand, I'm calling this an 8 and this a 12. As a reminder, you buy 12s as singles and 8s as pairs. As there are now 2 sub-tiers and you can have up to 4 sub-modules, what is allowed may not be completely obvious. I'll lay down the law. You can pair 2 8s, 4 8s, 1, 2, 3, or 4 12s, and 2 8s coupled with 1 or 2 12s, the latter of which is what I'm reviewing. Channel count clarification. The Dragon system has and continues to support up to 4 sub-channels, and still maxes as an 11.4.6 channel system. While 2 paired 8s with no other sub will continue to act as 2 channel sub-modules, adding a 12 or another 8 will convert all the 8s to a single channel sub-module. When an 8 is converted to a single channel, you lose the ability to activate individual woofers. The whole module is either active or not. So to recap, my setup with 2 8s and 2 12s is an 11.4.6 system. Setup. For a soundbar system, it's time-consuming and physically demanding, but if you follow the instructions, you shall accomplish your quest without having to fight bad guys or errors. The 12 is 90 pounds in the box and 80 out of the box, so be prepared. You may want to lure your friends over with the promise of a spicy Coca-Cola, maybe an extra fizzy beverage, if you're catching my drift. But after the move, be safe out there. Nakamichi really thought out the unpacking instructions, preventing a pull the sub out of the box situation, which is nice. You'll need firmware version 3.0 or higher to pair more than 2 subs. Unless you're buying the Dragon anew with the 12s, you almost certainly have a firmware version below 3, and will need to update using the USB stick included with the 12 packaging. The update will take about 30 minutes, which... After the update, the 8s will be unpaired, so you'll need to pair whatever subs you have by holding the pairing button on the sub until you get rapid blue blinking, and then holding the input button on the main unit. Use the on-screen display sub pairing screen to select your desired sub configuration and confirm that a sub is paired. I recommend downloading and/or updating the Dragon app. It's the fastest way to change audio settings, including activating and deactivating subs. Anyway, after setup, I was sweaty, but delighted. Simmer down. Design and build. The 12 is an undeniable augmentation in looks and quality from the 8s, and the clear Star Dragon component in terms of structural integrity. The 12 has a textured, hard coating that makes it look more finished and considered than the 8s. The 12-inch woofer is made of aerospace-grade aluminum, and the passive radiator is made of carbon. There's 750 watts of peak power. There's quite a bit of flair in the front with the gold-tinted coated woofer, the exposed screws, and bold white outline. The metal grille covering the passive radiator on the bottom looks cool enough to not be on the bottom. If you need to mute the look, the magnetic octagonal grille gets you there immediately. Someone over there, not me, said the cool wipes won't make you put them on. That guy. The bottom is raised, which gives the passive radiator some breathing room and mercifully makes the sub easier to pick up. The pairing button and the power port are in the back as you would expect. You're not going to find controls nor inputs back there that would enable you to use these elsewhere. Frankly, it feels like a missed opportunity to build some customer goodwill. Let's review the 12's frequency range. In my last video, I did address the 19 Hz claim, which literally said as low as 19 Hz. 19 Hz is a funny frequency because it's arguably infrasonic or indetectably low to most human ears. Yes, even mine. That, my friends, is called a softball. While a decibel weighting tuned to act more like a human ear does not detect a 1920 Hz tone from the 12, a decibel weighting more strictly for measurements, or DBC, does absolutely detect it. There is something happening at 1920 Hz. You can see the woofer moving. But I stand by my perception that it's not a frequency you would easily notice with any of your senses. I think this is a more complete take than in my last video. The most natural frequency for the 12-inch is dang near close to 30 Hz, where it's clearly audible, tactile, and sounds quite smooth. I think the senses are most delighted at 30 Hz. Practically speaking, 30 Hz is called upon far more frequently than 19 Hz, and 30 Hz done well, I find immensely satisfying. But if you're well acquainted with the heightened physical impact of a robust 19 Hz, more likely from a 15-16 plus inch sub, again, this system doesn't practically deliver in that range from my experience. The high end of the 12's frequency range is 200, but as we'll discuss, this isn't necessarily a frequency that the sub needs to play with much vigor. Main unit to sub crossover performance. The main unit, unlike many standalone bars, puts a particular emphasis on mids and highs. Below 160 to 150 Hz, the main unit and surrounds really want to quickly unload its remaining work. This lack of low end on the main unit leads to a relatively narrow overlap between bar and sub, which may contribute to a less smooth, say graduated handoff that could negatively impact or disrupt the listening experience. As this was a particularly pointed criticism in a high-profile review, I assessed male voices along with musical instruments like double bass and piano in isolation so I could more easily determine if there is a weird gap, drop in sound, or a strange bifurcation where, let's say, it sounds like a dude is talking from both the bar and sub. I'm typically not so absolute, but I had zero issues in this range with any sub combination or location.
Do Samsung's best soundbars support Dolby Vision? And why no AV receiver reviews around here?
Over and over again, I perceived the sound as coming across as unified, blended, not as discrete segments scattered across the room, even when the content is selected to highlight the issue. Now, if you're more interested in taking sound apart rather than listening to the whole, seeking the essence like old Uncle Aristotle taught us, you will quickly understand that the intelligible part of, say, speech is completely handled by the main unit, and the unintelligible supporting low tones is relegated to the bass modules, giving the voice depth. So 2 kinds of drivers are managing categorically different sound jobs, which is very normal. The 12s. So the big question is, holistically, how does the 12 impact the Dragon experience? Yes, let's start with the dual 12s, and I'll bring the dual 8s into the conversation later. The 12s bring an immediate and undeniably clear improvement to bass presence, which clearly elevates the entire ensemble. I predict once you start listening to the 12s, your expectations for what a soundbar system official subwoofer should be will shift. I'd say the 12 is a bar-raising, no pun intended, move for the product segment. Coming from the 8s, I would not trumpet, look forward to way more decibels, or now you're finally gonna get crushed by the power. Instead, expect more confidence, authority, clarity, smoothness, consistency, precision, definition, and responsiveness than the 8s, and a noticeable dose of added physicality. But I wouldn't call it an overtly aggressive physicality. The 12s I sensed was a finer balance to the main unit and surrounds with their emphasis on upper frequency clarity. The 12 complements those mids and highs with cleaner lows. Virtually all content will be enhanced by the 12s, though the fidelity of the recording and frequencies called upon will still make a big difference in overall quality. I watch exceedingly little live TV, so for fun I watched some football to hear what the new subs did for it. You know, the quality of sound coming out of, say, YouTube TV is pretty poor. It doesn't call on low bass frequencies that much, and the Dragon doesn't do much to, say, smooth the edges. I don't see the 12-inch bass buying you much with that kind of content. High-end streaming scripted series are a major step up and will benefit far more from the improved subs. But the biggest payoff, and where the Dragon sounds most at home and has the capacity to really rise above the competition, is in dramatic 3D object-oriented lossless format movies. Voice almost always sounds most balanced in movies, and there are near countless moments, whether it be an engine rev, rocks collapsing, a punch, a gunshot, an eagle swoosh, a menacing rumble, a stomp, an orchestral piece, that will sound heightened, but in a low way. The 12's cash-in moments with this high-end content are numerous. I've tended to talk about music performance gingerly with the Dragon. I think there have historically been too many setting format pairings that will fall flat, certainly compared to traditional stereo and even other notable soundbar systems like the Sonos Arc, Bose Ultra, and the Sennheiser Ambios. Keeping it on Dolby Surround and listening to content over HDMI has been and remains my ardent advice. The 12, however, really elevates music playback. The low end is more potent, cleaner, and shapelier, which makes quite a difference. I surprisingly lost track of time enjoying the new capabilities, particularly with tracks with a more modern mix, remastered to Atmos, as those tracks have more bits and are more bass prominent, and the format is more likely to elegantly utilize the surrounds. I find surrounds critical in soundbar music playback as it introduces some of that breadth and separation you get from stereo. Not every song is going to hit, but I suggest you do some rediscovery if you happen to land yourself a pair of 12s. Find a classic remastered album or compilation. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. The yuppies will likely be most delighted with their invigorated hip-hops and Post Malones. And stop calling me a yuppie. I'm 42, and I'm a 6'11" beast. I just have a baby face. Glad we settled that. So what does adding the 8s back in the mix do? It does boost overall bass volume noticeably, but not dramatically, and it allows for more specialization, so the 12s can focus more on the frequencies around 30 Hz, the cash money range, having to worry less about the 100 to 150 Hz stretch. An obvious worry is that the 8s would not jive with the 12s on the quality front, a bit of oil and water perhaps. An unsavory mix didn't strike me even when they were right next to one another, in part because the 8s really let the 12s take the lead on the lowest tones. And the 12s do come with a dedicated DSP chip to handle the meld. It would be nice, however, if the customer could at least adjust the relative levels of the two kinds of subs. I think it could really help the customers find their preferred blend. Sub arrangement. For most of my testing, I positioned the subs in a line, so 12, 8, main unit, 8, 12. However, when I finally got around to moving the 8s to the back, one of the recommended arrangements, and I popped in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes Blu-ray, Baby Beluga, 2540 to 3130 was a frickin' showcase. It seemed like everything you want to hear and feel comes true. The immediately clear benefits of the four-corner sub-arrangement called into question whether the big enhancement here is the improved subs or the ability to take that 4 sub channel capacity, pull it apart, and space them around the room. First of all, the 4-corner sub situation just really brings some balance to the back, as the rears are perhaps not particularly bombastic or diffuse in their delivery. In the past, I've mentioned how I appreciate how the Sonos Era 300s bring some low-end oomph to the back. Their low range is 40 Hz, which, even if that's an iffy claim, which I haven't tested, it's still well lower than something like 160 Hz with the Dragon surrounds. So with a rear sub and Dragon surround now in close proximity, it was almost as if the two speakers melded and became a more interesting wide frequency range speaker. Yes, I get it. These subs are not localized, like say to the rear left. I wasn't born in a barn. I've been instructed to say a barn is a perfectly acceptable place to be born. Beyond the heightened physical impact of sitting in the middle of 4 subs, I sensed a transformation in spaciousness. The sound came across as more open and overtly spatial. The rear subs really emphasize, exclamation point, and ground the directional effects. For instance, a horse galloping across the screen, a monkey getting thrown through a wall, an eagle flying right at you, and the swooshy sound of fire being whipped around. Just moving the 8s away from the 12s was a huge sound upgrade, and one I wish you could have shared with me. Aw, you guys. Though I'm still feeling guilty that I got such a thrill watching that monkey village get all f***ed up. This Planet of the Apes content segment really stuck out to me, as it was one of the first major action scenes I listened to with the 4-corner arrangement. But there are countless other scenes in the DTS:X Atmos movie universe that would be similarly augmented. I'd like to reiterate that the richer the audio format, the more the 4-corner arrangement will pronounce itself as the absolute best option for 4 subs. It probably doesn't matter so much if you're watching the local news. Closing advice and considerations for maximizing sound. As the Dragon main unit nor surrounds are particularly diffuse in their delivery, extra manual work is required to maximize the impact of the main unit surround channels and rear speaker channels. Obviously, you're going to want to sit in the center of the main unit, but you may have a significantly different perceptual experience depending on the driver alignment height with your ears. For the surrounds, my take, you'll want to get them at a 45-ish degree rear of you and as far away as you can, making sure they can still sound too loud. You can always tone them down, but you may want the option to make it louder for when extra titillation is deemed necessary. Yes, the main unit can come across a bit forward and directed. If you're sensing this, I would reduce the front channel levels and treble level and raise the surround levels and height levels. This has always helped me balance the front sound and is a bigger problem with lower quality audio. For the front sub placement, you may want to experiment with different distances from the TV. You may also consider orienting the subs towards the captain's seat, which may improve sonic impact, clarity, and limit undesired resonances. Beyond these placement and setting considerations, gonna say it again, format and media fidelity very much matter. Expect the greatest return on your investment playing modern tracks in spatial audio. It will be with a Blu-ray on a high-budget movie that you're most likely to turn to your lady and say, "Money well spent." And she'll turn her head, look at you straight in the eyes and say, "Can you turn it down?" Sub-purchasing advice. For those already with the Dragon and you're looking to take it further, the 12s are the way to do it. I'd say buy 2 and continue making good use of the 8s. However, you could add 2 more 8s, which would still have a significant positive impact for around half the price. For those customers looking to start anew, getting my setup for $5,700 as an alternative to the $8,000 Quad 12 setup seems very reasonable somehow. My take on a 3-sub arrangement? Nah. If you want 3 12s and you can't afford 4, don't get the 3 12s. For those customers starting fresh, thinking about the 2 12s Dragon, I think you will have many wonderful experiences, but they would be even more wonderful with even just the 8s in the back. Wrap up. As I have said repeatedly in my reviews, I believe the case for the Dragon is narrow but existent. To go for the Dragon, you really need to pass on a lot of quality options, many of which can be had for a fraction of the price. The Q990C, for instance, is $1,000. It has a suite of smart sound adapting technologies that makes it far easier to achieve its peak sound, and I'd argue it's more spatially accurate. But you might believe its ceiling, even if that ceiling is more accessible, is just too low, perhaps given the sub option and driver set. The Sony home theater quad, it's more expensive than most, but still way less than the Dragon. It has lovely spatial performance with front wide separation. It's a breath of fresh air in soundbar land, but maybe the sound just can't get big or grand enough, or something like that. Traditional home theater. You can buy 4 even bigger high quality subs that do get physical at 1920 Hertz. You can get wide separation up front. You can put speakers on the ceiling for more convincing height effects. More advanced room correction and sound adjustment levers. The list goes on. Maybe you really want that sound, but after everything is weighed, it's just too cumbersome. Not approved by all stakeholders. Well, dang it, you still have an overstuffed wallet about to drag your pants down, you're in the market for a serious soundbar system, and you think the Dragon may be worth it. Let me reiterate the caution signs. No internet connectivity, no auto room or content correction to keep the sound in bounds, non-exceptional sound diffusion or channel separation, overall non-exceptional spatial audio from the main unit and surrounds, which is a shame considering the number of dedicated height drivers and Pro Atmos and DTSX. And it's super bulky for a soundbar system. Pros, yes, loud with tons of headroom, but there's more to it than that. It's the most physical tactile system. You get exceptional clarity for voice and sound effects. It's the only soundbar system that supports 4 subs and surround speakers. You get above average the 8s to the most premium the 12s official sub sound in class, and many input options, including 3 2.1 enabled HDMI inputs, and a line-in for getting all kinds of unadulterated content onto the system and passed to your TV. My take put these pieces together strategically, so the right seating arrangement, component positioning, sound settings, and content. You will have access to the most satisfying and thrilling experience for an official soundbar system. If that access weighs really high, the Dragon may be for you. And that's all I gotta say. Please help me reach my 40,000 sub goal by 2025, because even though she denies it, with every new sub, my wife finds me more irresistible. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.